first question is, how do we get to know each other? I mean, maybe you can tell us the story about how you and Antoine, my partner Antoine, got to know each other from your Google days and how we came to invest in your company.
I think it's a story about, that something we always used to say when I worked at Google a long time ago for 5 years. And we always used to say that the table is round, that you can take a seat, in your career at any point in the table. So Antoine interviewed me to join Google back in 2007, and I joined Google as the head of online sales and operations for Spanish-speaking Latin America. And he was the director of our area. Google at that time had one region, which was called APLA. What is APLA? Asia Pacific and Latin America. Back then,
One big
imagine Asia and Latin America were
together,
right? We would have calls at 12 at night, or 6 in the morning, just to try to match time zones. But back then, Antoine was the director, and I was the head for Spanish-speaking LATAM. So that's how we met. Years went by, and we just see ourselves in a different position in the table, as I call it. I was working at Facebook after Google, also for 5 years. And I was seeing that chat and messaging was the primary communication means in digital, more actually than the web and then email. And that's what clients wanted to do. And Mark Zuckerberg bought WhatsApp, purchased WhatsApp, right, Facebook. And that clicked. I said, hey, companies will need a platform. So I shared that with some colleagues. I shared that with Antoine, 2016. And Valor ended up being an investor in our company.
The first and only.
Yes, exactly. The first and only so far. We've had seed investors, strategic advisors who joined us, especially in Brazil. But yes.
And how big are you today?
So our company, we're about 220 people, more or less. We learned a lot from Google and from Facebook that everything we do needs to scale. And so that means also high productivity for our teams. So our 200 people, each one of us, we aim to be very, very highly productive, high revenue numbers per head. And of course, it's a profitable company. So we haven't raised back until now.
I love that. Growing at scale and profitable.
Yeah.
That's what we all want to hear as investors. What has been the biggest shift in tech that has impacted your business? I think for you it's easy.
Well, we started in 2016 with our sort of minimal product. We made it a platform very quickly in 2017. We reached over $1 million in revenues in 2018, and it's been up, right, scaling since then. But in 2022, by the end, we've been doing our own NLP. NLP means natural language processing. So we're an AI company, right? We've always done our own language models.
We didn't know that it's going to be LLMs.
Exactly.
We knew it was going to be AI.
And until the LLMs came on board, when we saw them, the first time I used the ChatGPT, I was blown away. We've been using vectors or numbers in a way to represent words and letters in our models for a long time, but just the scale and the usability of it. And you see sometimes size changes the nature of things.
Right.
So the size of the LLMs, the large language models, completely changed the game. And for us, it was starting over.
Yeah.
It was starting over because the product, now we had to incorporate outside APIs for AI, which we've been doing internally for a long time. But also, we knew immediately that the expectations from clients were going to raise, right? Now, the minimum clients expected something as good as ChatGPT, right? So, game changer totally, and moving fast is the key.
That I was going to say, what's my future podcast? And maybe you might be one of the first guests. The idea is the following. It's going to be called Watches and Founders. And you're like, why Watches and Founders? There is a very, very cool not-for-profit in San Francisco called Long Now. And what Long Now has a symbol is this mechanical watch being built in the mountain in Texas that will run for 10,000 years without any assistance. But behind that is this concept that founders and we all need to be way, 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 way more long-term. And why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I notice a kind of a cancer with founders. Your job is very, very hard. After about 6, 7, 8 years, it's tiring and you want to give up. And that's when everything goes bad. Instead, if you think that's your business for the rest of your life, you will build a much better company. And that's the message I want to convey in these watches and founders. On top of it, I want to talk about mechanical.
I love it.
On
Oh
top
my
of
God,
it, I want to talk
it's,
about mechanical watches because I'm fascinated by mechanical watches.
I love the long-term view of things. If I can share just a small anecdote, when I joined Facebook back 2012, I got to meet Sheryl Sandberg, right? Former COO for Facebook. Probably she doesn't remember this. And I asked her if you could tell me one thing, right, as I start my managing director role for the office. And she said, build the business for the long term. Help us build the business for the long term. Because there are so many incentives to, right, go for the next win, for the quick win, for the big number right now, right?
And by the way, Mark represents this long-term view, right? He's taking a lot of risk at Meta, creating new things, betting the company.
The trade-offs.
And funny enough, Mark has become a big watch collector. And he's people that love watches have noticed. And maybe I can get Mark to be one of the first guests of this podcast. And we can talk about watches and we can talk about long term.